Yes, there you are. Welcome. It's our Confessions podcast, another audio array of terrible tales from the discerning Radio 2 listener who just keeps on doing bad things. This week's concise collection includes, let's see how we do with this alliteration, a fake photo frenzy, a misleading movie myth, a bare beach blooper, and a frolicsome fatty fib. 6 and 7, that kind of thing. Anyway, here come the tales. Who will you forgive? Here comes another drive time confession, and we've themed this one because we're all ghostly after 6 o'clock with John Boyne in the house. So this came in and thought, well, this might work today. This might set the tone. It's a confession from Jim, who says, Father Simon and the merciful clan of merriment. By the way, if you miss any, of course, don't forget the Confessions podcast is there, so you don't have to miss a single one. It's all there, nicely packaged. My confession, says Jim, dates back to the balmy Easter school holidays of 1986. A bored 15-year-old, not old enough for a part-time job, so always on the look for whatever mischief could be gained during those long, boring holidays. We lived not far away from an old railway cutting, a place that was filled with stories of hauntings and ghosts and ghouls. It was also a local hangout for the teenagers in the area. One fine morning I decided I would do something different for a change and take my old instant camera up the cutting and take my nature photos of plants and wild animals, much to the disgust of my younger brother, who was dragged along with me. So off we went, instant camera in hand, taking snap after snap of the interesting fauna of this old disused railway cutting. Once back home, after a hard few hours of wildlife hunting, we sat down in front of the television to be confronted with an old drama set in the 1920s, which quite a lot of the scenes were of an old railway. Now, not wanting to miss the opportunity to pass up a trick, I took a photo of the television of a young lady in her 20s in a railway carriage. This is kind of early 20th century kind of stuff. I then decided to go back out to the old railway cutting and take some more snaps in the hope of fooling my family that I had inadvertently taken a photo of a ghost or spirit. The next day I took the film to be developed. That shows how old this story is. Yeah. And waited a few days for the photos to finally come back. Unbelievably, the photo taken off the television was a success. And on the negatives, it showed it was slap bang in the middle of the photos of the disused railway cutting. Well, now for the next part. My dad came in from work that evening and I sat him down with my mum and showed him the ghostly image of the young woman in the 1920s railway carriage. They were overwhelmed with excitement. More so than I thought. Even in the morning over breakfast, all they could talk about was how their son had taken what they thought was one of the photos of the century. Maybe the first real concrete evidence of life beyond the grave. Our family's place in history was sealed. My brother and I thought this highly amusing. That was until about lunchtime when I had a call from my dad telling me that he'd rung the local Gazette, followed by a call back from the aforesaid newspaper, who were excited and wanted an interview and a photo, and the panic set in. It did cross my mind at this stage to mention that it was in fact a fake, but I thought I'd just see what the newspaper said. Well, that Friday the newspaper came with a reporter and a photographer. Slight overkill, I thought, but hey, they took a photograph of me in our garden with my camera in hand, the way local journos would always do, and the photo of the lady in the carriage along with a full centre page story. And this is where I started to worry I might be in a bit deep here, I thought, particularly as the newspaper had now arranged for me to take the negatives to the local camera shop for them to investigate. Again, that day came and my brother and I said nothing in the hope that if they did say it was a fake, we could blame my other brother taking my camera. The local photo expert enlarged the photo, magnified it, and came to the conclusion that it was too clear a picture to have been fooled with, and it was in fact genuine. So the local newspaper ran the story again and reprinted my fantastic photographs. "The ghost with the most," screamed the headline. "Life after death proves local snapper. Death not the end exclusive." I mean, really. During the next few weeks, my ghostly photo and me became a bit of a local celebrity. But by now, the lie was too big to unpick. Drinks had been bought for me, autographs signed, kisses received and given. The old railway cutting became something of a mecca for ghost hunters, and many, many people tried to reproduce my picture. Surprisingly, they failed. So, Father Simon, I seek forgiveness from my father, Over 25 years have passed and Dad still doesn't know the full story, nor does the local newspaper or the various books that this story has appeared in subsequently.
Really?
I also want to ask forgiveness from the various people that wrote to the newspaper that were forwarded on to me, telling me that I had in fact taken pictures of deceased relatives that used to use the railway, when in actual fact it was an actress from an afternoon TV show, probably Jennifer Agutter or that Miss Marple person. I seek forgiveness from the reporter. I think if it was Jenny Agutter, that wouldn't have fooled anyone.
Yes, that would be...
No, she's in the Railway Children.
Jenny
I seek forgiveness from the reporter of the local rag who thought that he'd unearthed a story that would change the way we thought about death, but actually, subsequently, it turned out that he hadn't. Well, that's an interesting story because, Jim, it just started as a little prank and then suddenly it escalated and the lie was too big to unpick, and so it stayed there. And so his dad, 25 years on, still doesn't know the whole thing. What do you think, Sister Rebecca?
That's an amazing confession. I can't believe that he's just confessing for the first time to all those people on this show. But that's fantastic. I mean, I suppose that's the best way of doing it, rather than just, sheepishly speaking to his dad 20 years later, over a cup of tea.
Yeah.
I think the classic line is this: I thought I'd just see what the newspaper said. He did have a little bit of an opportunity to confess at that point, didn't he?
I think
but
he was
thought
quite
he'd just
enjoying
see.
it. He was having a good time,
enjoying
don't you
it.
think?
And then it just became one of those situations where there was no possible exit point. So I do feel for him there, but I think he probably had an opportunity just before the newspaper came round to say it's all a bit of a joke. So I think, Jim, considering it caused such a fuss amongst ghost hunters, I'm not going to forgive you.
OK, so Brother Matthew always takes a hard line on
Well,
these things.
he got exceptionally lucky, didn't he? In that this movie that he was watching, the carriage fitted perfectly with the railway cutting where he was going anyway. But bear in mind, this is the days before digital photography, so he couldn't have done any cropping or anything like that. The picture was a one-off, and he had to take it, and it worked straight off. Excellent stuff. And the newspaper, frankly, were just going to lap it up. They love this kind of stuff. Although ghost with the most, that's the best you could come up with. It's a ghost in a train carriage. It's going to be better than that. Ghost, just because they rhyme doesn't make it a good headline. But I love the fact that it got into books. I love that. Even that is so good that it's ended up with something, proof that ghosts exist. Look at this. Doesn't that look like some film from the 1930s? Oh, yes, so it does. That's the end of your theory. So I am going to say definitely forgiven. Well done.
We've moved on, and Gwyneth has sent in tonight's tale. You can send in yours, Simon Mayo, confessions at bbc.co.uk. He's got his own little email account, which is
Were you about to give your own personal email
Could have
account?
done. Could have done. It has been done before. Yes, very good. And the Confessions podcast is there for you in case you miss any of them. Dear beautiful and handsome collective, says Gwyneth.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
Exactly right. My tale comes to you after years of lies and guilt. A guilt that's haunted me every school year. I'm a primary teacher and have been teaching for 10 long years. The teaching is in inverted commas.
Well,
That's what it is.
she's been teaching.
She's been
That's absolutely right.
teaching for 10 long years, which teachers often do. At times, although I try not to, I find myself a little bored with the daily routine and the same old answers, same old questions, same old lessons.
We've definitely changed the name, haven't we?
Let's hope so. So I'm not sure we have. Have we? Just checking.
Too late.
Before we continue, I just want confirmation that we've changed Gwyneth's name. We have. OK, that's all right. Bored teacher Gwyneth. Therefore, from time to time, myself and my trusted teaching assistants try to, shall we say, embarrass each other for fun. Crazy, I know, but that's what we do because we're so bored.
I'm not sure I want to hear this.
For example, over the years, I have commented on her being a trapeze artist just to fool the children, or a famous roller skater, and they always take the bait. She has tried to pay me back. However, on one occasion I knew I was in for revenge when an Oscar, yes, a gold plastic statue imitation, appeared on my desk, like the one you can buy in that shop for £1. OK. I ignored this Oscar for some time, hoping that I'd ask her on the quiet what on earth it was up to there. But before I knew it, she was whispering in one or two children's ears. I continued teaching on the subject in hand, probably quantum physics, not, when two hands went up. She's hilarious. She's
Get another job.
Two hands went up. I nodded towards one hand, and the response was, well, I don't want to ask you a question about the subject, but what's that? They said, pointing at the Oscar on the table. The curious child, indicating the Golden Award, and my teaching assistant piped up, yes, go on, Gwyneth. Tell us about it. You've been keeping it a secret for so long. I gave her the look and through gritted teeth said, Well, OK, I'll tell you, but it's a secret, so don't tell anyone else. Telling children not to tell anyone is, of course, red rag to a bull, and they gathered round, eagle-eared. The curious child... OK. To my surprise, I exclaimed, "Well, I won it." And another hand shot up. "Is it what I think it is?" asked Alex. "Yes, Alex, it's an Oscar." Several bright children actually gasped. And I continue now with growing confidence. I was quite enjoying this complete fabrication. "Yes," I continued, said Gwyneth, "a few years ago I was lucky enough to be in a film. And due to my on-screen performance and help behind the scenes, I won the prestigious award." So not only did she act,
Yeah, I was going to say.
she was the stage manager.
Yes. Is that what they give it for as well now?
Apparently. And I know you don't have a stage manager in a film, but anyway. At this point, I turned and winked at my teaching assistant and continued to teach as if I'd done all I could, and that was fine, and we all moved on. Anyway, about 5 minutes later, young Tommy said, "So what film was it then, miss?" "Oh, I thought you'd like to know that," I answered, with many films running through my head. I could have picked anyone, but I exclaimed, "Night at the Museum." "Oh, Night at the Museum? I've not even seen it, let alone been in it," says Gwyneth. At this point, a rousing round of applause filled the room. They clearly had seen it, and I began to worry. Well, I continued to teach. The children looked at me quite oddly through the rest of the day, but myself and my teaching assistant got through with the odd giggle and the occasional smile. The following day, however, little Connor asked to speak to me on the quiet. He told me he'd watched the film that evening and asked me to confirm which character I was. Well, I panicked a little, but did remember seeing cowboys on the film poster I'd seen when it came out, so I said, I was one of the cowgirls?" He gasped, clasped his hands over his mouth, and with tears in his eyes said, "I know, I said it was you." I simply nodded as he looked at me in awe, which, you might like to know, she spelt O-R-E.
Oh, dear.
Nice teaching, Gwyneth.
Oh, dear.
Anyway, Connor continued, "Miss, I thought you were great. I liked you the best in the movie." Over the following days, I had streams of parents asking me if this was true. I laughed with each question, expecting that they'd realise the truth, but ended up by confirming that, yes, indeed, it was me.
What?
That, alongside Ricky Gervais and Ben Stiller, Robin Williams, and you might remember Dick Van Dyke, I had chosen to be a cowgirl, as an ancient curse brings all the exhibits to life. She's obviously researched this since.
Yeah.
What stories I could tell, which I tried to, of being with Ricky and the pranks he played behind the scenes. How me and Ben hit it off straight away, and how I accidentally told Robin he hadn't been funny since Mork and Mindy. And it was all accepted as the gospel truth. Once I even tried to claim that Dick had led us all in a chorus of Chim Chimney from Mary Poppins whilst waiting for Ricky to finish washing his hands. But at that one, we all struggled to gain any credibility at all, so I dropped it from my repertoire when I told this tale. Each new school year, Father Simon, a sibling of one of those children, when I told this story the first time, asks me on the quiet if it's really true. And until now, I haven't been able to break their pure, innocent hearts. But, Father Simon, the time has come to seek forgiveness from all of the children that I've taught and deceived, who thought that I was an Oscar-winning... Well, no, not really Oscar-winning movie star, but, you know, that's what they thought. I didn't mean to lie or deceive, but I really did enjoy my 5 minutes of fame. I think it's a little more than 5 minutes of fame, isn't it, given the number of years not only have you told this story, but repeated it, and then when asked whether it's true, actually said, yes, it actually was true, and then made up other stuff. Anyway, it's Gwyneth, and I guess I now realise why they've chosen Gwyneth as the name, to protect our bored teacher of 10 long years standing. Who knows what we're going to get? What do you say?
I did something quite similar to this once at work, and I told people I was Rosamund Pike's sister, and they all believed me, which I was really surprised about because she's got blonde hair. No, I mean,
did you lie to get your job?
No, I didn't. Anyway, but it rapidly escalated, and there was gossip going around the whole office. Oh, I never knew Rebecca was Rosamund Pike's sister. Blah, blah. But I did actually then fess up very quickly and said, I just said, I can't believe you ever believed me. I think that she had the opportunity to do this, and she didn't take it. And I don't know. I don't really approve of her having a laugh with her teaching assistant at the children's expense. But on the other hand, I mean, were they actually harmed? I mean, was anyone harmed? I'm a bit torn with this one.
Emotionally damaged.
Yeah, I don't think they are emotionally damaged because of what she did. So I think I'll probably forgive you.
OK, so Gwyneth gets a tick. Let's see what Brother Matthew does.
There's nothing like being in a position of authority for lying to kids. Well done. Always going to agree with that. Brilliant. Love it. But you're not saved by the fact that you can't spell or. I mean, really. Looked at me in O-R-E.
Look, there you go. And I actually changed it. I marked it. See me.
And did I hear this right? Were the parents taken in by this as well?
Yes.
So the parents were saying, so I hear you won an Oscar. And at no point did any of the parents think to themselves, is that a bit weird that we've got our primary school teacher won an Oscar? They sound a bit thick to me.
I think they could have looked it up. Night at the Museum didn't win any Oscars at all for anything.
Didn't really trouble the
Did it have
Academy.
cowboys in it?
It did.
Oh, it did.
Actually came to life.
Owen Wilson. Movie knowledge there.
5 points.
Well done. So I am going to say forgiven, because, frankly, the parents hadn't got a clue.
Into the Drive Time Collective, we welcome the Dean of Death.
I beg your pardon.
Venerable Deadly, he's here
I've come a long way for this.
making another...
Very good evening.
An
to
esteemed
Simon.
appearance. By the way, we've made a little film, which will be up tomorrow, I think, which will explain how you get your confession actually onto the air.
Oh, right.
It's a very neat little thing, and we'll tell you about that tomorrow.
When do I make that for you?
Anytime you like.
Okay.
Shoot it yourself. There's no budget. So Sophie has sent this one in. Sophie, thank you very much indeed, dear Simon. In the formidable few, I need to share an incident from my distant past. The early 1980s, to be exact, when I was young and carefree and on holiday with a girlfriend in Magaluf. We spent the nights dancing and the days dozing, lying in the sun on the beach by the pool, and on occasion we would partake in some of the water sports that were on offer. It is one of these water adventures that I need to ask for forgiveness for. That's not too many fours next to each other. Father Simon, I was 19 years old, and I have to say very thin. So tiny bikinis were the order of the day. I was so hot day to day that my friend Jess and I spent almost all of our holiday in our swimming garments. As I'm sure you can understand, we wanted to work on our tans. On the particular day in question, I was wearing a particularly tiny green and white striped bikini. One of those... Just steady
Look
on.
at Matt's face, for goodness sake.
Are you all right with this? Are you all right?
One of those... It was
Need some water?
It was one of those that was held on by ties on each side. After a particularly long night of dancing and a morning of basking in the sun, Jess and I decided that what we needed was to cool down, so we decided to go water skiing.
Okay.
What's going to happen?
I really can't think. Now, this is something that I had never done before, Father Simon, because mainly I don't like deep water, especially the sea. But with the excitement of the holiday and too much sun, these details were forgotten. We arrived at the dock. We were shown the equipment, and after a brief lesson on how to stay standing, Jess and I hopped onto the boat, and I was towed from the beach into the bay. We were soon skiing of a fashion across the water, enjoying the cooling spray which was splashing up over our heads. After a few minutes, I suddenly became very aware of where I was and what I was doing, and was instantly terrified of falling into what I realised was very, very deep water. I took a deep breath, and I tightened my grip. The boat took a sudden turn, and the force of the spray increased, shooting up at me and soaking my face and neck. I closed my eyes and held on for dear life. I didn't mind the water. It felt nice to be cooled down in the sun, but I was a little shocked at the force of the spray. The boat straightened up, and we resumed to a slightly lighter jet of water, which was now cooling down my legs. However, something felt different. Something wasn't right.
Oh, yes.
My bikini top was missing.
Oh, no.
So I was now topless with no free hands to cover myself up, and I had no intention of letting go and falling into the water, which I was terrified. So I continued to grip the bar, praying for the ride to finish soon. As I clung onto the bar of the tow rope, I could see Jess waving frantically at me from across the water. She had obviously noticed that I was no longer in possession of my bikini top. I refused to acknowledge her. She was so common, but she kept on shouting. She kept on waving and pointing. And then she started shouting, and I couldn't make out what it was. But from the shock on her face, it was clearly something important.
Oh, no.
Slowly, I risked taking my eyes off the water and the boat for just a second, ignoring the possibility of falling, and I looked down. And there, around my ankles, was a small piece of green and white striped material waving like a small flag. It was the bottoms of my bikini. Now, as if to emphasise this fact, as I watched and the reality dawned on me that I was now completely naked on water skis, the bikini bottom managed to untie itself completely and fly across the water behind me. Determined, however, that I was not going to drop into the water. As I mentioned, I was terrified of the deep. That's what Jess was telling me to do. She wanted me to protect my modesty. Obviously, I held firm, more afraid of the water than the embarrassment of being naked in front of the holidaying crowds on the beach on this beautiful August afternoon. Realising that I wasn't going to let go, Jess persuaded the boat driver to bring the boat into shallow water, much closer to the unsuspecting sunbathers, but in water that was shallow, where she could pass me a towel at last to cover up. So, Father Simon, I am seeking forgiveness for, obviously, causing embarrassment to my friend Jess by refusing to fall into deep water, which is what any sane person would have done, because of my irrational fear of what might be lurking beneath. I seek forgiveness from the boat driver who was forced to give me a longer ride on the water skis because I refused to let go of the bar, but most of all, forgiveness from the people on holiday in Magaluf who were subjected to an extraordinary sight, going backwards and forwards across the bay, thinking, what's going on here? And other things. Anyway, Sophie, thank you very much indeed. And you can kind of see what the issue is there. Because obviously, everyone, what would do, you just drop into the water and then fine, and that would be the end of the story. But if you have an irrational fear of the deep, you're in a problem. What do you think,
If you have
sister?
an irrational fear of the deep water, you shouldn't go water skiing. Number one.
I think
Number
she'd
two,
had a lot of sun.
if you're wearing a really skimpy bikini, you shouldn't go water skiing.
Yes, I think she'd had a lot of sun.
Yeah, a lot of sun. I think...
And it's thirsty work, that lying in the sun.
Yeah, I think Jess probably found it quite funny, actually, rather than being embarrassed. And I'm sure the people on the beach really enjoyed it, as I'm sure did the boat driver.
No, I think they felt for her embarrassment and they wanted it all to finish.
I think there's not much to forgive here, actually. I think Sophie's probably really embarrassed, but that's about it. So you're forgiven, Sophie?
We haven't done water skiing confessions. I don't think that's the first of the water skiing ones that we've had. I don't know whether that's going to be a fruitful area. Anyway, the Venerable Deadly.
It was an accident. That's all it was, and she'd have been bright red all over when she arrived back where she started. So, yeah, an accident. These things happen, don't they? We said that earlier.
I like that.
These things happen. So, totally forgiven.
I like the fact that she was ignoring her friend because she was so common.
Yes.
Just shouting a lot. Oh,
See,
for
at
heaven's
first,
sake.
I thought, can't you hold on to the bar with one hand and then do something with the... But, of course, you need
no,
both hands, though.
You absolutely need both hands.
Yeah.
Brother Matthew.
Yeah, this had all the makings of sort of saucy 70s sitcom, didn't it? It was sort of, oh, there goes my top. Oh, it's all a bit crazy. And frankly, having been to Magaluf, they're well used to people in the boff doing the water
you wouldn't
skiing.
want to
Pretty
water
much
ski in there.
par for the course, frankly. Far worse than that in Magaluf. I am going to... Yes.
The voice of experience,
Yes,
ladies and
indeed.
gentlemen.
We've all been there. We've
No,
all
we
been
haven't.
there. Yes, we have.
haven't.
Nobody, stop rolling your eyes, you lot. We've all
haven't
been
been
there.
there.
Absolutely, yes, we have. I am going to forgive, because no glass houses with stones being thrown in this studio.
Okay. Rebecca and Matt and myself, we've done a little film, about 90 seconds, not very long, just how to do a perfect confession. You know, if you wondering how to get your confession on, the kind of thing that we like, then if you go to the Radio 2 website, go to the Drive Time pages, it's all there. It's an all-singing, all-dancing affair. We're standing by the Elton John piano. That's how exciting it is.
Wow.
And then we have a little chat, and then that's what it is. So before you send us a confession, watch the film, and then send us an email to confessions@bbc.co.uk. You can go by the website as well. There's a nice little form for you to fill in. Tonight comes from Sarah. Thank you very much indeed. Dear Father Simon and the Fellows of Forgiveness, by the way, we welcome Novice Nigel back.
Thank you.
In for some unearthly reason.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
I'm hoping that you can forgive me for a cruel and greasy turn of events, which I caused back in the final year of the 20th century, in fact, the first month of 1999. Back then, I became a manager in a small shop selling art products. Almost certainly unforgiven. That's what I'm thinking. It was a tiny shop with a very small area for staff. This small space was reserved for me, or the one full-time member of staff I had, called Phyllis, well, we're calling her Phyllis anyway, to cash up, place orders, or at lunchtime to escape the shop floor and eat our lunch in the warmth of the shop. Unfortunately for me, Phyllis was a lady who insisted on eating greasy takeaway food every day. As she was always hungry, she always took an early lunch, which meant more often than not I used to walk into the tiny space to escape for a short time from my more healthy sandwich and be confronted with the stink of stale junk food. Phyllis's favourite takeaway was the chip shop 2 doors down from ours. Ooh. It was run by a very nice Chinese family. Now, you see, I just mentioned chips, and all of a sudden, just because it's a feta beetroot cheesecake, you're all excited. This was run by a very nice Chinese family who'd been there for years. Coincidentally, my wife grew up in Hong Kong. noticed that when it says from Sarah, I suspect that might not be from... I think we've changed the sex and the name of the person who sent this one in.
Oh, really?
Anyway, never mind.
Okay.
Let's say it's Sarah anyway.
This is going well.
Coincidentally, my wife grew up in Hong Kong, so I had picked up various words and sayings, including some insults, which I will not repeat in case I offend your kind and forgiving listeners. Anyway, one day we were sitting around the shop for the whole morning with very little business. The shop, you might like to know, is now closed. When we got into the conversation of Chinese New Year, which was imminent, I then thought I should suggest to Phyllis that if she said Happy New Year in Cantonese to the lovely people in the chip shop, they might give her a few extra chips and possibly a free saveloy. I mean, what more could you ask?
A sausage, yeah.
I told her to say Happy New Year in Cantonese, but actually what I told her was a phrase used in Hong Kong for a low-priced lady of ill morals, shall we say. So anyway, Phyllis walks in, gives her order, and then the greeting that I'd passed on to her, but she didn't receive the smiles and the saveloy that she was expecting. In fact, she got some chips thrown at her. And the chips were thrown at her, and her hair was covered in grease and potato by the time I saw her next. She came back in the shop. I told her that she'd probably just pronounced it wrong, because, as we know, you have to get the emphasis right, and Rebecca will know this because she's half Chinese. So anyway, so you have to get the emphasis right, and they obviously got the emphasis wrong, so that's why the chips were thrown. I gave her another phrase, which I said was, I'm very sorry for any misunderstanding. She tentatively went back and was shouted at again. This was because she actually said, my pants are too tight, a phrase that I had actually used a few times myself.
What?
I had one last go to get a grand finale, but I was halfway through teaching her the Cantonese for my grain escalator is faulty when I think she rumbled me and stopped listening. That could have been a euphemism, but anyway. So I seek forgiveness, not from Phyllis, because she's the person who made my small office stink of junk food and grease for the few months that I was there, but from the poor lady in the chip shop who lost her best customer. But there is a happy ending. I occasionally see Phyllis now, and ironically she works for that same family that she insulted all those years ago in the chip shop that she loved so much. So maybe once the air was cleared and the grease was washed out of her hair, she got her dream job because of my mischief. And that's from Sarah.
Yeah, obviously not.
But obviously not.
I'm very confused.
And probably Bill.
I'm very confused about the gender of this person.
Well, it doesn't really matter,
it doesn't
because
really matter.
Sarah, or whatever he likes to be called, it's not the heart of the confession. The heart of the confession is she made him say some things in Cantonese which actually weren't actually Cantonese.
I mean, it's very funny doing this to people when they don't speak the language and telling them what to say. But I can't believe she fell for it twice.
Almost 3 times.
Yeah, almost 3 times. So I think maybe Phyllis has to bear some of the blame here.
What, because she's not very bright?
Well, maybe, for trusting him. It was so obvious that what she said was rude when she got chips thrown in her face. So I think it was really funny, and I forgive you, Sarah.
Oh, well, that's an interesting turn of events.
Let's be honest here. The first words you want to know when you go to a foreign country and you don't speak the language are always the naughty words. It's like, the first words you look up in the dictionary are always the naughty words.
Well, they're not in my dictionary.
Well, definitely I do. And so I find it hilarious that he got her to go into this shop and say all these things. Where it starts getting bizarre for me is where he says he was trying to teach her that the grain escalator
escalator is faulty.
Which is...
Have you not used that?
No, I've not. No,
on,
which is a bizarre phrase to know in Cantonese. But I am going to say I am going to forgive just because I love the fact that you got her to go in there almost 3 times.
If you have got a grain escalator in Hong Kong and it's not working, this is a very important
It's just the right phrase to have, isn't it? Well done.
I have no idea, but you've got a grain escalator either, man. So,
it's faulty now if you know how to fix one.
But I have to say, Phyllis certainly knows either the Cantonese or the Mandarin for gives a job, and she got the last laugh.
She did.
So I think, well done to you, Phyllis, and for wearing lots of greasy food as well as eating it. And I think so. I'm not going to forgive you, Sarah. I'm going to say, Phyllis, no. I think you got the ultimate revenge.
Yeah. I committed a terrible crime in Hong Kong because my son learns Chinese and he told me what to say. So I went into the hotel and I said ni hao, and I was expecting them to go ni hao ma, wo hen hao she she and all that. And they looked at me and said, "Sir, that's Mandarin. We speak Cantonese." Anyway, this is the unforgivable sin. So I paid double bill, and that's not a. It's like going to Barcelona and speaking Spanish.
Right.
You don't really want to do that. No. So did you forgive Nigel?
No, I didn't.
No, okay. Well, it's down to the people's verdict. Please, what do you say then? It's 88291 or Simon Mayo at bbc.co.uk. And they were the confessions for this week. Let us know what you think. Who did you forgive? Plus your own confession, because we all know you have 1 or 2 tucked away. Confessions at bbc.co.uk. I'm away next week, so no Confessions podcast. But hang on in there, because another one will be along shortly.